Juneteenth for me means is a couple of things. It means that it brings back childhood memories of being in the park with my parents, barbecuing and celebrating with a whole bunch of people who have migrated to California from Texas and Mississippi. My mother was from Galveston, where Juneteenth originated. Later on, I figured out that it was like a second Independence Day for us. I had Juneteenth and I had the Fourth of July. It was like being doubly blessed. And later, as an adult, I kind of put it together that it matched my two-ness. As an African and African American, I got Juneteenth as well as the Fourth of July to celebrate independence and freedom. And I figured that on the positive side, I was doubly blessed to have both. I'm independent and free as an African American. Thank you.
I want to take this time to wish you all a very happy Juneteenth. June 19th has always been a day that my family and friends have celebrated. We celebrate liberty, we celebrate freedom, we also celebrate the rich culture that we have here as descendants of Africans in the United States. So on this weekend, I hope you take the time to celebrate your family, to think about how far we've come, but acknowledge that there's much, much, much more work to be done here. Happy Juneteenth.
June 19th could not be coming at a more fitting time, and for me, it's an opportunity to reflect on our history of brave Black women and men who suffered under slavery and fought so hard for our freedoms and our equities that we have now. Over 150 years later, we are still struggling with issues of racism and injustice. The current situation has forced us to once again confront the long history of injustice, and it is critical that we stand together, speak out, and do everything in our power to eradicate this bad behavior.
The reason for Juneteenth is for celebration, excitement, happiness about being free. And here we are today. We're still talking about Black Lives Matter. We celebrated our Black lives and the freedom with Juneteenth. I want to celebrate the fact that children, the next generation, will know real freedom. They will celebrate. Juneteenth will not just be a day that comes in history, but that it will be celebrated among all men and women.
As far as Juneteenth goes, I had to do some research on it. Not really aware of it coming up. Elementary school through middle school in the history books, history lessons, as far as the celebration of it. I just think it took a backseat to Independence Day. So now with the movements you have coming up, people are debating, especially with the Black Lives Matter, should we put more emphasis on Juneteenth for us, considering the freedom associated with it as opposed to July the 4th. So you have that going on. And so it's just Juneteenth is a reminder of policy being in place to liberate all of the African Americans, throughout the United States, and still, the freedoms that we're supposed to have that are just kind of withheld from us. So that's what I think about when I think about Juneteenth.
I wonder why it was never celebrated. At least when I was growing up here in Asheville, very limited celebrations. And my grandmother said it was because during segregation, of course, a lot of Black people could not, because of Jim Crow and segregation, couldn't use public facilities to, like a park or anything like that. So it was kind of relegated to community shelter or small parts of the community and kind of sporadic. So it couldn't be just a huge, big public celebration. She said it was because there was so much oppression and a lot of people thought we didn't have anything to celebrate. But here lately, before the pandemic, of course, there were public celebrations. So that's what I know about Juneteenth in Asheville, North Carolina.
As I think about Juneteenth, I think about growing up in elementary, junior high, and high school. I never knew about Juneteenth. Never, it was nothing that we were taught in school. I did not know about it till I went to a historically black college. That's when it started to be resonated. The celebration is great, but we never celebrated growing up because we didn't really know anything about it. It was so far stretched from down in Texas. So as we celebrate Juneteenth, I love to keep it in a positive perspective because I have seen the changes from the 50s, the 60s, and now the 70s. Right now, I feel like we're kind of at a place where we're not growing anymore. So I will celebrate Juneteenth, my family. So I celebrate the fact that we've come a long way, and I try to tell my children that even though you think it's hard, it was harder back then than it is today. So we have come, so this is a reason to celebrate.
I was hoped to think that when the plantation owner came out on the front porch back then in 1863 or 1865 in case of the slaves in Texas, that when he came out and he said, I can no longer keep you here, you're free to go. I'm thinking that my grandfather, great-great-grandfather was standing there, and when the plantation owner maybe finished his speech and everything, he did a couple of things. Number one, he looked down at his feet and he said, I got some shoes on, I got some pants on, I got a shirt on, and I got a jacket and a hat. And once that speech was over with, I guess he says, I'll see y'all, bye. Celebrations are happening now, and I hope this helps to highlight this holiday, or highlight this celebration day. And we can see that it's even on the national level. We can see that our president had to rethink his plans because of that. It was almost like, did he even consider it? Oh, did he even consider Tulsa, what happened in Tulsa, the massacre? Did he even consider it? And now he's saying, oh yeah, well, okay, we'll change that day. I guess that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.